In January 2014, Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in California. According to the Washington Post, this is California's worst drought in recorded history. In San Bernardino, the groundwater is 550,000 acre-feet below full. Early predictions of above-average rainfall this coming winter might have helped. However, supplies are so depleted, at least 2 years of heavy rains are needed to make up the deficit. And in late September, NASA reported the prospects of an El Niño event with heavy rains in 2014 are weak at best. Earlier this year, Inland Empire water districts restricted outdoor water usage. Residents and businesses now face fines for wasting our precious resource. Hello, I'm Donna Truhella. This is Inland Uncovered. In this program, we'll look at how the drought crisis is affecting the Inland Empire. Joining me is Joe Grindstaff, General Manager of the Inland Empire Utilities Agency. He played a key role in building the first desalination plant in Chino to counter the salt contaminants in our drinking water. He was also instrumental in finding funds to build the other desalters in the Inland Empire. Doug Hedrick is the General Manager of Valley District. Doug travels to Africa every year to help residents develop and maintain water systems in a country with only rudimentary water services. As a volunteer, he teaches communities how to deliver safe drinking water. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Doug, how serious is this drought?
Well, for anybody who's picked up the newspaper in California, you know that something's going on, right? And this is a serious drought for California. Since 1977, we really haven't seen a year like we had in 2014. And since that time, as you know, millions more people have moved to this state. So this is really a time for action, a time to recommit to water conservation and to understanding our water supply.
How long has the drought been going on?
Different definitions, but the one that we usually use is 3 years. 2010, 2011 was the last time we had average precipitation in the state of California. Going back a little bit further, the last really wet year was 2005. So if we look at dry trends, and that's usually what we do as water supply managers, we're really talking about primarily a 10-year dry period. That's what we get in California, though, is a lot of dry years interspersed with really wet years.
Okay, so this question for both of you. So where do we get our water from?
We get our water from Northern California, we get our water from the Colorado River, and we get our water locally from sources here, from rainwater that we capture or that just naturally percolates into our groundwater basins.
And Doug?
About 70% comes from the latter, from the local resources. We're very fortunate. We have 250 square miles of high elevation watershed that feed our basin, kind of like our own mini little Sierras here. And most of the precipitation that we are able to capture and put into the ground actually falls in the mountains. So we like it when it falls as snow because it's a lot easier to capture as it melts slowly. But primarily, our water supply comes from our local streams.
Okay, how much are we actually drawing down on our water?
We're pulling water out of our stored reserves, both above ground and in the groundwater basins, but we have a lot in the groundwater basins. Our surface storage has probably been pulled down, at least in the Metropolitan Water District area, by about 2/3 in the last 3 years. That's quite a bit. So that's why it's becoming more serious. If the drought continues, it's very clear that we're going to absolutely have to be much more conservative in how much we use.
And in your area, what have you noticed?
Yeah, so we track these things very closely on behalf of our constituents, and we are at historic low levels for our groundwater basin overall. Mm-hmm. Again, that's how our basin operates. It's not really a panic. It's just we put water in wet years and we pull it out in dry years. We have been pulling on that groundwater basin again as we talked about just a minute ago, for quite a number of years, and it is at a very low point, and we're preparing for the next wet year to make sure we can capture everything we can.
This question to both of you too, who manages our water basins and how does the water get to our residential homes?
So as far as who manages the basins, most of these decisions and the governance structures that we have set up were decided back in the mid-1900s, 1969 being a premier year for us. Was the settlement of a series of lawsuits up and down the Santa Ana River, all the way from the Pacific Ocean to the mountains. Part of that governance are what's called water master committees, groups of individuals. Joe and I are both members of these committees who get together and make sure that all the compliance, all the rules and regulations that everybody decided to live by are being followed. So it's really a cooperative effort. I mean, the water master really takes care of the accounting and making sure that everything's being complied to. But at least in our basin, water management is really done as a partnership. It's a shared resource, the groundwater basin. We play a role as the wholesaler, but we have many other partners who help us in that regard.
So as Doug said, we have dozens of local agencies, local entities that have a role in managing the water supply, and we all have to work together cooperatively in order to succeed.
How are we wasting water?
Probably the most obvious thing is what everybody sees, water running down the road from over-irrigation. I think if you had to say the one thing we do in Southern California is we over-irrigate, and that causes, much of that is lost water.
Yeah, again, over-irrigation is caused mainly by this neat little invention called a sprinkler timer. And we all love our sprinkler timers, but we've lost the connection to what that actually means. A lot of times if there's a brown spot in our yard, we just go out and add a few minutes to the sprinkler timer until the brown spot disappears. That's when in reality what we really need to do is maybe add one more sprinkler to that spot, and then we could dial everything else back. So the main water waste is like Joe said, over irrigation. We could do a lot better, and having sprinklers that end up putting most of the water on the street or on sidewalks.
Well, but to some extent, it's not just the irrigation that's caused by the sprinklers. It's also the fact that we have so much grass, so much ornamental turf, landscaping that's not really appropriate for California. And trying to make landscape that actually matches our climate is a critical issue for us.
It sure is.
Doug, the Twin Tunnels project is probably the most expensive water project proposed in California history. What is the BDCP solution?
The Bay Delta Conservation Plan is a comprehensive solution to water problems that the state of California has faced for decades, if not the better part of a century. It's a combination of both ecosystem restoration projects, primarily for native fish, but for many other species too, combined with, and this is the unique part of the Bay Delta Conservation Plan, combined with making a more robust water delivery system. The first time we've really tried to solve these two problems, at least, perhaps not the first time, but we're trying to solve these two problems together, really the only way that they can be solved. It includes, again, hundreds of thousands of acres of restoration, trying to put this, what was essentially a saltwater estuary before it was reclaimed, back into some level of saltwater, freshwater interface, along with the tunnel project, which most people associate the Bay Delta Conservation Plan with the tunnel project. The tunnel project just happens to be one of the measures. The tunnel project basically is a method, a way for us to move the water that we've captured behind dams in Northern California through under the delta to our point of diversion. Saves a lot of fish, gets us out of earthquake-prone areas, makes us more robust, more reliable. You mentioned the cost. Cost is really important to us. We report to elected officials, and it's a really important aspect of the job we do. Bay Delta Conservation Plan, the cost of the tunnels, what we would be responsible for as part of the state water project, is about $10 billion. That's with a B. That's a lot. For our customers, if we whittle that down and really zero in on individual customers, we're talking about $5 per household per month. That's a lot of money, I understand. But in the grand scheme of things, if we really are getting a system that makes us more drought-proof, more reliable, more robust, at the same time that we're protecting native fish species, I would suggest, and I hope others could agree with me, that $5 a month is probably worth it.
Joe, you were going to mention something today about the fish that would be protected because of this project.
Well, it seems to me that for people that don't know a lot about this, the real simple explanation for this project is we're trying to stop killing fish so we can export more water south. That's putting it maybe too simply, but sometimes a simple explanation is it. We want to stop killing fish. We want to make it possible for more fish to thrive. And when we do that, we think we'll be able to export more water, have more reliability going into the future.
Okay. The state water contractors like yours have rights to buy water from Northern California, like this state water project that is imported to Southern California to supplement local supplies. I understand your agencies operate differently because Joe, the Inland Empire Utilities District, is a member of the Metropolitan Water District, and Doug, you are a member of Valley District. So considering these differences, how are your agencies set up to pay for the proposed, whether it's 10 billion, whether it's 25 billion, how you set up to make this happen?
We are a state contractor, just like Metropolitan Water District Southern California. We have a contract with the state of California for a certain amount of water from the state water project. So the costs associated with the tunnels and any of the mitigation associated with that will be paid for using the funding mechanism that was established by a vote of the people when our district was established. It's essentially property taxes. We pay for the vast majority of the costs associated with the state water project using property taxes.
In our case, it's a little different. We're part of the Metropolitan Water District, and we have a small portion of our costs covered by, maybe 10% covered by property taxes, but most of the costs would be on the price of water. So we could expect perhaps a 5% or a 10% increase in the cost of water, and that's how we would cover the cost of BDCP.
Okay. Moving on, let's talk about recharge ponds. What are they and why do we care?
Well, recharge ponds are typically part of an integrated flood control system. And I'm sorry that sounds more complex than it is, but it's a way to catch rain when it falls from the sky and percolate it into the ground so that we don't let the water be wasted. We actually capture it and use it for drinking water for other purposes in the future.
Okay. So the Delta pipeline runs 441 miles to Southern California. It's 50 years old. What are both of your concerns about its infrastructure?
These facilities were built for the long term, and they've been maintained ever since they were built. And so we really don't think that they've reached anywhere near the end of their lifetime. They're fairly simple facilities. Of course, all the mechanical equipment like pumps and valves, those are replaced when necessary, 20, 30, 40 years. But we're basically talking about concrete and steel. I mean, we can see that still in the Roman Empire, right? So we think we have at least 100 years probably left of these facilities. Again, it takes maintenance just like your house or your car, and we do that. And the state does that on our behalf.
Probably the biggest problem I see is subsidence. So there are some places where the canals run where the ground is subsiding because of the overproduction of water. So where people overdraft, that's what the technical term is for pumping more water out of the ground than is sustainable. Sometimes the soils compress and you have subsidence. In some cases that can be significant, and we do have some of our canals that run over areas that are subsiding. So I'd say that's the most significant issue.
Okay, another issue people are concerned about How are we capturing stormwater runoff?
We work directly with the flood control districts. As Joe mentioned, many of the facilities we use are dual-use facilities. They're used for flood control primarily, but if we can capture the water, we want to do that. Sometimes we have separate facilities, but usually we start in a flood control facility.
For example, we have agreements with the flood control district and with the water producers in our region and the water master, and we actually work with all of those parties to improve the basins, to divert flood flows into the basins so we can capture that storm water, that flood water.
I think it is important to understand there is an inherent conflict between flood control and groundwater recharge, and we work really hard to overcome that. As a flood control manager, their job is to make sure that the flood flows are released, that they're sent downstream so they don't cause damage. We want to do the opposite. We want to slow it down as much as possible to be able to capture it. So it takes extreme coordination to make sure that, number one, flood control protection is not jeopardized in any way, shape, or form. But at the same time, we're trying to capture every drop of this really valuable resource. Because a lot of times during storms, this water is going to the Pacific Ocean, not really providing any benefit. So if we can capture it, it's one less acre foot of water that we need to bring in from Northern California.
Speaking about conservation, I interviewed Assemblymember Cheryl R. Brown of the 47th District. She expressed her concerns about conservation.
The drought is very serious, and we have to take it seriously. If you don't have water, then you can't grow your community. If you don't have water, or your water is contaminated like it is in our region, then you won't be able to do anything. Now, San Bernardino itself sits on an aquifer that's very rich. However, we don't have as much water. This is the lowest of the water table that we've ever had. So it's very important that our constituents, the people in our community, conserve.
So, gentlemen, what are we doing about recycling our water?
Well, in our case, we're recycling almost everything that we possibly can. We have a judgment, as Doug mentioned earlier, and we're required to release some water to the river as a part of the management of the river. But other than that, we actually recycle everything that we can in our region, and we're looking to capture more water from other agencies so that we can recycle that as well. It's how we can make sure that we have a really resilient water supply moving into the future.
Okay.
And for our region, we're not as far along as the Inland Empire Utilities Agency. However, there's a lot of planning, and I think it's a foregone conclusion that at some point in the future, all of our water, all of our treated effluent will be recycled. It's just too valuable. There's just there's going to be too many demands.
Okay, Joe, can you please tell us what is the brine line?
A long time ago, about 40 years ago, the parties in the region got together and decided we need to find a way to export the salts in the region. One of the key drivers at that time was Kaiser Steel, actually. In order for it to continue to operate, it needed to have a place to send the brine that came from its processes. But over the years, we've needed to develop that brine system for many other industries and for brackish water desalters in the region. In order to maintain clean water, we want to make sure that the salts and other contaminants leave the area.
So that then leads to the next question, what are desalination plants?
Well, we have a number of desalination plants, desalters in the region, and their objective is to actually take water out of the ground that's contaminated with salt, with other contaminants, and treat that water so we can use it for drinking. And we do that now in several plants in the Inland Empire, and I think set the standard nationally for doing that. It's a key part of our water supply and a key way to control water quality in our groundwater basins.
What do you gentlemen both see as the main myths? What do you think people believe about turning on the water at their taps?
Yeah, very good question. Uh, in some regards, it really comes down to we're a victim of our own success. We've done such a good job trying to provide reliable water service to the point where many people now are 2, maybe 3 generations removed from anybody who remembers having to worry about water, right? It's just there. So number one myth is, where does my water come from? It comes from a tap. It comes from opening up a faucet in my house. And that leads to the next myth, that it's unlimited. I've never had it shut off before.
And I want to add a myth. I think there's a myth that the world will always continue, that we will always have the same amount of rainfall that we had over the last century, and that will continue forever. So people think the way the world has been is the way the world will always be moving forward. And water is more variable than that, something we have to manage very carefully.
We also did a survey recently asking people what if they thought they used more water outside or more water inside their homes. And roughly 70% of the people that we surveyed thought they used more water inside their homes than outside. And actually it's the opposite. About 70% of the water that we use in the Inland Empire really goes trying to keep something green outside of home. So a big part of our education process is to help people understand that if you want to make real improvements in water conservation, you really need to look at where the big water users are. And again, that's back to lawns and other landscaping.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, in our region, we actually do pretty well on indoor water use. For years, we've been pushing low-flow toilets and low-flow shower heads and trying to change how we use water indoors. And I think that's been pretty effective. Many of the wastewater plants have seen decreases in flows because people are using less water indoors. But our outdoor irrigation practices haven't caught up to that standard.
I see. How hard do you think it will be for Southern California to recover from this drought? Let's say if it should continue another decade.
Well, if it continues another decade, there will certainly be lifestyle changes that will have to be made. How severe those are just depends on how much below average our rainfall is. Again, we've made some great progress this year. We just have to be more efficient. We have to be more efficient in how we use the water we have available and how we capture it when it rains. And again, no one wants to think about a mega drought, but they exist, right? We have tree ring analysis that shows that the droughts that we're talking about, 3 years, people would just laugh. What do you mean 3 years? That's not a drought, right? What if it's 80? What if it's 70 years? Certainly we don't think that's what's going to happen, but if it does, we need to be prepared. And a lot of the programs that our agencies have, again, haven't taken it to that extreme yet, but they're certainly a step in that direction.
There's actually been a study that looked at what happens if there is a 70-year drought. And the impacts were significant, but they didn't change the economy of the state very much. We continue to thrive as a state. Our economy continues to thrive. Ornamental turf, grass, probably goes away in that kind of scenario. We keep functional turf, so I think everyone wants their kids and grandkids to be able to play on turf. It's a wonderful thing to do, but some of our landscaping things change. Agriculture undergoes some significant changes, but still remains a thriving part of the California economy, even in a scenario of sustained drought. I think that's possible as we move ahead.
This has been a very interesting discussion. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Water is a precious resource, and the western United States faces serious problems because of the ongoing drought.
We have to have groundwater cleanup. We have to have storage. We have to clean up our lakes and make sure that our lakes are vibrant.
Water is our life force. The Inland Empire is a semi-arid region experiencing population growth. According to Western Municipal Water District, as of October the 1st, 2014, Diamond Valley Lake, a man-made reservoir, is down 402,000 acre-feet. That's 50% of its capacity. Lake Matthews in Riverside is down to 29% of its capacity. Conserving our water just makes sense. We need to think of water as our own personal asset, just like we do our savings account. Once it's spent, we know we must save before we can use it again. Every drop we conserve helps. If we are facing a mega drought, conserving will become a mandated lifestyle for everyone. So start today. Take shorter showers. Turn off the tap while brushing your teeth. And when we do get a downpour, be prepared. Install rain barrels under the gutters of your home to provide water to irrigate your plants and wash your car. Replacing your lawn with drought-resistant flowers maintains the beauty while preserving water for the long term. With community involvement, we can address these issues head-on. I'm Donna Truhella. This is Inland Uncovered. Thanks for watching.